Good afternoon, Ms. Behaunek. We'll let you take a little moment to get comfortable, and you can start your remarks as you are prepared to do so.
Thank you. Thank you all for serving on this commission. I know how much time you all put into your service, and I really enjoyed meeting with many of you and hearing your thoughts about what it takes to be a judge on the Iowa Court of Appeals. It's an honor to sit before you today and to be considered for this opportunity. My parents were farm kids who grew up in rural Minnesota, and they taught me from a young age the importance of hard work and of following through with my commitments. I took that to heart when I was a teenager and signed up for detasseling, which for many of you, you may know, that's a common rite of passage for rural Iowa youth. It's pretty grueling work. You show up before the sun is up, you work through the cornfields with your team, and you do your best to work efficiently and effectively so you can all go home at the end of the day. And then you get up the next day, and you get out there in the field, and you do the work again. You might be asking, what does detasseling have to do with serving on the Iowa Court of Appeals? Well, the characteristics that were necessary to succeed in the cornfields as a teenager are some of the same characteristics that are very valuable in the members of our Iowa Court of Appeals. Having a strong work ethic, being adaptable to changing circumstances, and being able to effectively work together as a team. So I'll take those in turn. First, a strong work ethic. Each of the members of the Iowa Court of Appeals must author approximately 100 opinions each year, and they must work with their colleagues on their 3-judge panel on another 200 cases. You have to be self-motivated and have a very strong work ethic to make it through that high-volume docket each year. Ever since serving in the cornfields as a teenager, I've demonstrated my strong work ethic. I'm someone who volunteers and actually shows up to do the work. That's true in private practice on behalf of my clients, and that's also true in the additional obligations that I take on, whether serving on boards or committees or different nonprofits in the community, or providing legal presentations to attorneys and judges to educate legal professionals about complex issues in the law that they need to be aware of to better serve their clients or serve on the bench. I tackle complex issues on a routine basis, and I'm no stranger to hard work. During the spring of 2020, for example, I had 2 appellate briefs due on the same day in front of 2 appellate courts. One was an employment dispute submitted before the Iowa Supreme Court, and one was an appeal from a bankruptcy trial before the bankruptcy appellate panel for the 8th Circuit Court of Appeals. I had to work diligently with my team to make sure that we completed both of those tasks and did so at a high quality level and on time. In addition to a strong work ethic, the judges on the Iowa Court of Appeals must be adaptable because not only are they working on a high volume of cases, but they must be able to switch from one type of issue of law to another, whether it's family law or a class action appeal or a complex criminal matter. That adaptability is critical to all of the judges' success in working as a team. My time working as a detasseler really laid the groundwork for a career that's been defined by adaptability. When I clerked for Judge Gritzner at the Federal District Court here in Des Moines, and then again later when I clerked for Judge Kelly at the 8th Circuit Court of Appeals, I was consistently asked to jump into new cases addressing unique areas of the law with which I was unfamiliar and assist my judges in working through his or her docket. In private practice, I litigate diverse business disputes every day on behalf of businesses and individuals, and I'm consistently switching from one type of case to another to effectively advocate on behalf of my clients. I've appeared in over a dozen appeals, spanning a variety of legal issues, and I also worked on numerous appeals before when I was clerking with the 8th Circuit Court of Appeals. I've also worked on a number of appeals when I worked at the Appellate Defender's Office in law school. And my colleagues at NYMaster frequently asked me for my advice or my counsel on the appeals that they're working on in front of Iowa's appellate courts as well as the federal court. That's because they know I have a passion for appellate practice and procedure, and I'm interested in supporting their work and serving our clients in a variety of ways. On one memorable occasion, I was asked to draft an appellate brief in 1 week's time. I had not worked on the case before. I had no familiarity with the legal issues or the facts of the case, I immediately embraced the challenge, got up to speed quickly on the case, and wrote a well-reasoned, persuasive brief in that 1-week period of time. It's one of my proudest accomplishments as a private practitioner. In addition to having a strong work ethic and adaptability, the Iowa Court of Appeals judges must work as a team to work through a high volume of about 1,000 cases a year collectively. They must be able to reach consensus and disagree without being disagreeable so they can keep moving forward and serve Iowans. They also rely on the expertise of other judges on their panel because they each come to the bench with different experiences and levels of expertise that can work to complement the whole. In the cornfield, just as in the legal profession, if there are diverging opinions about a course of action, you must communicate respectfully with one another and figure out how to forge a path forward. During my time on the Des Moines Choral Society board and on numerous bar associations and committees, I've worked with others to build consensus and find common ground so we could work together to meet our goals. When I disagree with someone, I endeavor to have direct communication so we can see if there's a way to find common ground or at least maintain a professional and personal relationship after we've moved past our disagreement. Additionally, having a diverse appellate court comprised of people who come from different backgrounds with different types of experience is important for the Iowa Court of Appeals. Based on my discussions with current judges on the Iowa Court of Appeals and with many of you over the last several weeks, I believe there are 2 experiences in particular that I have that set me apart from the other candidates you are considering today and which would complement the work of the court as a whole. First is my business litigation experience in complex civil litigation matters. I believe that that would really complement the current team of Court of Appeals judges and assist them in their work. Second is my experience with technology-related issues in litigation. As noted in my application, I have experience with electronically stored information issues, both at the discovery stage as well as at trial. I frequently speak at legal seminars about social media issues in litigation and provide counsel to other attorneys and judges about how they should be prepared to address changes in technology in our litigation system. And finally, there are 2 attributes that I think are really necessary for members of the Iowa Court of Appeals that just did not fit into my detasseling analogy, but they're very important and they're worth mentioning to all of you today. So first is impartiality in order to encourage and further instill public trust in our judiciary. And second is the ability to second is an understanding of the people who are on the other side of the page, because Court of Appeals judges are deciding cases based on a cold record without the benefit of seeing the litigants and seeing those providing testimony in front of them. So first, impartiality. As I've shared with many of you, I clerked for 2 different judges, and I had the opportunity to see them decide cases with integrity and impartially, ensuring that they were deciding cases based on the law as it exists at the time and the facts of the case before them. And just as my clients currently hire me to be their advocate and their counselor, and I must do so based on the law as it exists at this time, judges are hired to be impartial and to set aside their personal beliefs and their personal biases and decide cases based on what the law is, even if they don't like the ultimate outcome. It's a hard job, and that's why it's important to pick the right people to serve on the bench who can do that job and do it impartially. At the appellate court, as I noted, judges are working on a cold record, but they must remember that the names on the page are real people with real problems who need judges to help resolve their disputes in our justice system. I've worked with people involved in personal injury lawsuits, employment disputes, family farm disputes, and I understand how difficult the litigation process can be for individuals. They're not used to it, and they need attorneys and judges to help make the process as painless as it can be. I understand how important it is for appellate judges to write thorough, well-reasoned decisions to explain, especially to the loser in the case, how the judge reached their decision so they feel that justice was served, even if they did lose at the end of the day. I believe I have all of these qualities, and I would be very honored to serve on the Iowa Court of Appeals, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
All right, and we'll start with Commissioner Graber.
One thing that I talk to my kids a lot about is their daily actions create their reputation, and that can leave a legacy, and it could be a good one or a bad one. What type of a legacy would you like to leave on the judicial system?
Thank you. That's a great question. If I am selected to serve as a judge, I would like for people to remember me as someone who worked really hard to get it right and who was civil and respectful to everyone who appeared before them and ensured that they were really instilling public trust in our judiciary. I think that that would be an incredible legacy to leave.
Commissioner Chase?
Thank you for your application. Please share the nature of your private practice, specifically as to jury trials and bench trials, and then the types of clients you've had, people or entities.
Thank you. I've had bench trials and a jury trial in criminal matters, and I've had multiple civil bench or jury trials. The types of civil cases include employment disputes and finance lease enforcement actions on behalf of a finance leasing company in particular. I also, during my time with Judge Gritzner and Judge Kelly, obviously worked on a number of cases in the federal court system that addressed trial-related issues on appeal, or I was assisting with actually running the trials with Judge Gritzner in the district court level. My clients are very diverse in private practice. I represent various types of businesses, including hospitals, insurance companies, financial institutions, family farm corporations, businesses of different sizes that are engaged in different types of contract or tort disputes. And then I also represent individuals, both on the plaintiff and the defense side. I think it's easy to forget sometimes that in the employment context, for example, oftentimes employees are named as defendants. And so I'm working with those individual clients who have been named as defendants and making sure that they understand their rights and responsibilities and our litigation process in general to ensure that they again, have as painless an experience as possible going through litigation, which can be very stressful for all involved.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Commissioner Pearson?
As we have met with individuals today, oftentimes we heard a defining moment, a person or a situation that helped define and guide where they're at today. And when you and I met, one of the comments you made was an experience you had attending Iowa Girls State as a counselor. Would you care to share with us how that impacted who you are today?
Yes, I'd be happy to. For those of you who are unfamiliar with it, Iowa American Legion Auxiliary Girls State is a program, a citizenship program for junior women going into their senior year of high school. And I had the opportunity to attend as a high school student and have gone back and served as a counselor and government staff member for many years. And there's a few aspects of it that have really stayed with me over the years. And one is working with women who were serving on the State Central Committee. There they were working together to craft their party platform, and they were engaging in collaborative discussion about complex issues. And it was really wonderful helping to facilitate those discussions and help them engage in that civil discourse in a respectful, collaborative manner. I think it's really important from a young age to learn how to build consensus and disagree without being disrespectful or disagreeable to other people. And Girls State was a really wonderful opportunity to really build those skills myself and help teach them to young women in Iowa.
Thank you.
Commissioner Marquardt?
One of the things Chief Judge Bauer advised us to look for was judicial independence in terms of the applicant characteristics. What does judicial independence look like to you, or what does it mean to you, and how would you utilize that if you were selected for the position in the Court of Appeals?
Thank you. Yes, so we have a three-branch form of government, and it's really important for judges to understand their role in that governmental system. Judges are supposed to apply the law as it exists to the facts in the case before them. And so they must make sure that they're not, setting forth what they think the law should be or what they wish the law were. And they must be able to make decisions independent of outside forces and not based on any personal or other views that may want to creep in to their judicial decision making. And one way that I think judges do that well, and something that I would strive to do if selected to serve as a judge, is to really set forth your reasoning in writing, because you can't hide when you do that. When you set forth your reasoning in writing from A to B, how you reached your conclusion, it really shows the lawyers and the judges in the case, as well as the public and the litigants who need to understand how you reached your conclusion, exactly what you were basing your decision on. Thank you.
Commissioner Henderson?
No questions, thank you.
Commissioner Parrish?
Well, thank you so much for your application and also for the excellent program that I talked to some of the commissioners about in Minneapolis, showing that Iowa had the leadership role in cameras in the courtroom and what we were doing, and actually streaming this program, explaining that to about 7 or 8 other state court judges and federal judges and attorneys. I want to talk to you about in that leadership role, and I think that's something else Chief Justice Bauer talked about today. Iowa has always been the leader, knowing the history of the court in terms of racial equity, gender equity. And so my question to you is that what qualities do you think you bring to the court in keeping that era going for the Iowa courts in terms of leadership?
Thank you. So I have often spoken about issues related to equity issues in the profession, gender bias, discrimination, harassment, and actually more importantly, I think civility in the profession. That's something that's incredibly important for judges to be modeling, for attorneys to follow. But I think one of the hallmarks of a really good judge is someone who is open-minded and professional and civil to everyone who appears before them, no matter their background, no matter the color of their skin or their sex or gender. It's really important that they model the impartiality and the civic mindedness that we want to see in judges on our court. And so that's something that I would certainly continue to speak about, civility in our profession in particular, and would continue to work with members of the bench and bar to continue making sure that we are providing justice to all Iowans, no matter their background.
Thank you.
Commissioner Hoig?
No questions, thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Hoytink?
So you graduated, I think, at the top of your law school class. You clerked for 2 federal judges, which is super impressive. You went to, I think by numbers, the biggest private law firm in the state, and you're a partner there. And as you kind of lay your resume, which is incredible, right? And as you lay your resume out side by side with some other candidates, through those experiences, you don't necessarily have by number, per se, the same number of appeals or trial court experiences, which arguably you're not going to get at those firms, but you do complex work. So can you talk a little bit about the nature of your practice and how maybe some of the complexity of the work, the qualitative nature of your work kind of offsets that a little bit?
Yeah,
and
certainly.
addresses that.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to do so. Yeah, so for example, some of the cases I have worked on, there may be a team of 10 attorneys working on these large scale cases, and they may span a year or longer in time that you're working on them. And so that's not going to result in, a significant number of appeals or significant number of trials, but those experiences do require me to consistently be engaging with opposing counsel in a respectful, professional manner, consistently delegating work and coordinating the work of team members, which goes to that building consensus, working through disagreements effectively so we can forge a path forward. And certainly we're constantly engaging in different types of legal work that I think does come before the Iowa Court of Appeals rather regularly. So for example, summary judgment motions or motions related to class certification in purported class actions, to other types of dispositive motions like a motion to dismiss. Those are all things I'm very familiar with in my complex civil litigation experience. Although, of course, if I'm successful in some of those endeavors, they don't ultimately end in a trial. That's the off-ramp opportunity that I've been able to provide for my clients in those cases.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Schnur?
No questions.
Commissioner Roberts?
No questions.
Commissioner Semmelroth?
Both of the judges that you clerked for were very accomplished trial lawyers before they went on the bench. How did you see that impact the way that they performed their jobs?
Thank you. That's a great question. So I'll take them in turn. So Judge Gritzner obviously was serving on the district court bench, and so he was consistently making evidentiary decisions or sentencing decisions, things of that nature, which I think his experience as a civil court practitioner was still very useful in rendering those decisions at a moment's notice in trial. Judge Kelly on appeal, at the appellate court level, again, you have that cold record, but she understood that There are instances in trial where you see the jury's face and that's not translated into that cold record. And so she had an understanding of that, and I think was able to take that into account when making decisions on appeal. And having worked with both of them and seeing how they approached deciding cases at the district court level and on appeal based on their background as trial court practitioners, I think was really useful to me as an educational tool. And it's certainly something that I've kept in mind as a practitioner. I often find myself thinking when I'm considering a course of action, what would the judge think about this? How will they perceive this argument in a brief? And how can I make sure that how I'm communicating it is something that they'll be attracted to? So that's what I've kept in mind as a practitioner, and I think that will allow for a smooth transition to the bench where I will then be adjusted to only thinking like a judge instead of like a lawyer quite as often. Thank you.
And our time is out. So thank you so much for your application, and we wish you all the best.
Great. Thank you all for your time. I appreciate it.